Good morning, everybody. We're a little late because we were having, it's, as you could tell, Arc de Triomphe. Hi, Karen. It's a little crazy over there. So there was if everybody's been there before and you've gone to the Arc de Triomphe, usually you could just walk right up if you're going to just go and walk around the base. And there's usually a really long line to get up to the top. Well, that really long line is also for the base right now. So Kate tried to sweet talk them, but I was like, we'll just go outside. So make sure, everybody, that you have Kate's image pinned up there on the screen. And we are here at the Arc de Triomphe on a beautiful day. Look at that. It looks like there's just nothing but sunshine the next 10 days in Paris. Thankfully so. They've had so much rain. It's going to be sunny just in time for me to get there in 9 days. 9 days. I'm pretty excited. Did anybody watch the live feed of the closing ceremonies of the Olympics? It was amazing when they showed Paris. I got goosebumps and was tearing up. I was so excited. They did a really cool orchestra playing the French national anthem, and then had people just in different parts, including in front of the Winged Victory in the Louvre. It was amazing. So make sure to watch that on, they'll probably show it, I guess, tonight in the US, but they had it on the direct feed with none of the commentators or commercials, which was awesome. Anyway, so here we are. We are at the Arc de Triomphe, of course. We are on the opposite side of the Champs-Élysées, because that is always kind of crazy busy over there. But if you know, it looks a little different right now. There's a lot going on because it is in the process of getting ready to be wrapped in 25,000 square meters of polypropylene fabric in a silvery blue color. And then it is tied together with 3,000 meters of red rope. And I'm sure most everybody knows that this is the work of Christo, who was a Bulgarian artist. He and his partner, work and love partner, Jean-Claude, had wrapped quite a few different structures around the world, including Pont Neuf, that they had done in 1985. So it was his wish, their wish, going back to long before they did the Pont Neuf, back to the 1960, they wanted to wrap a public building in Paris. In 1958, Christo came to Paris for the first time. He stayed in a little hotel that was just off of the Champs-Élysées. So he was very close to the Arc de Triomphe. And going back to then, he wanted to wrap. He was just kind of been fascinated with the Arc de Triomphe and had this idea. He met Jean-Claude in 1958 on that trip to Paris. And this next fact is what actually still blows my mind when I read about this. They were born on the exact same day, June 13th, 1935. I mean, how is that? Like, you're just destined. You're destined to be together. I just think that's the coolest thing. He was born in Bulgaria. She was born in Casablanca to French parents. They met in Paris in 1958 when he had come there. And so they had worked, and then they worked together their whole life. She passed away sadly in 2009. But they'd been working on this project specifically for the Arc de Triomphe for 40 years. And it finally came to fruition. He was going to be done in the spring of 2020, and it got moved, not because of what you think. It was not because of COVID. It was actually moved because there was a bird that its migration pattern goes over the Arc de Triomphe. And a lot of times those birds actually stop and roost on the Arc de Triomphe. So they didn't want to upend these poor birds. So they pushed it off to the fall of 2020. Then it was actually interrupted because of the pandemic. Oh, look at that image. I love the backside of this because it's just a little bit nicer than side with the craziness of the Champs-Élysées. So yeah, so they ended up deciding that they were going to wrap this. He'd been working on this forever. And then sadly, he died on May 31st, 2020. So he died basically when it should have been unveiled the first time. It was in conjunction with a exhibit they were doing at the Pompidou. And that exhibit did still go on, even though it was a pandemic. I was really bummed out that they didn't push that off. But there is something that Sotheby's is doing, which is actually very close to the Arc de Triomphe, that they are doing with a bunch of the images and sketches and drawings that he did. So I'm going to go check that out when I get there, or it opens actually the day before this does. So he said he wanted his dying wish to still be that they still wrapped the Arc de Triomphe just like he wanted it. And it's his nephew that's taking it over now. So you could see they started work on this actually right after on July 15th. So right after the Fête Nationale, they started working on it. There's different, it's what would you call that, scaffolding, but it's not scaffolding that they put around everything. Nothing is drilled into the structure itself. Every single thing on it is protected. You could see kind of the cage-like structures that they are putting over the sculptures there that are on the Arc de Triomphe. You could still walk around it. I will send everybody, there is a really cool live video 24 hours a day that you could check in. It's not exactly exciting to watch, but you can check in maybe every few days to see. It's just basically looking at this all day long. But it looks like there is a tiny little ring around it that people could still walk in. And that's probably why there's such a long queue to get in, because normally you could walk around that whole area that we see at the base, underneath it, everything. And so now there's just, and with all the precautions and how many people you could have in a space, that is probably definitely why they have that long line. But they are completely protecting it. I had somebody reach out to me, let me know that they did not care for this and thought it was a horrible thing to do. So to each his own. That's the thing about art. It's all subjective to what you think, but I think it's really cool. I'm super excited to see it. You could still, once it's unveiled September 18th. If you're going to be in Paris before that, I actually had somebody that heard that it was going to be, so they actually are changing their date so they could be there to see it, which is pretty awesome. And hi, Susan. And so it's going to be really cool. But as you can see, it takes a while to get it together. So if you are going to be in Paris and you're leaving before the 18th, you will probably still be able to see something. I'm sure it takes a while to get all the fabric up there. I read that the fabric, when they are sewing it and putting it together, they actually have to flip it. It's kind of like making champagne. They constantly have to keep flipping the fabric so that it doesn't get creases in it. So however, and that's 25,000 square meters is a lot of fabric. So it's going to be really exciting to see. But of course, the Arc de Triomphe was created under Napoleon the First. He wanted it created after the Battle of Austerlitz, which it was, he told his soldiers he wanted them to return under a triumphal arch. So that was why he wanted to have this created. Of course, it's he admired all of the great Roman empires and generals, and that was something that they had in Rome. So he wanted that. Of course, sadly, he never saw it completed. In February 18th, 1806 is when it was decreed and the cornerstone was laid. It was placed on his birthday, actually on August 15th, 1806. His birthday is coming up soon. He wanted to actually have that day be called Saint Napoleon, like he wanted it to basically be a feast day in his name. And Napoleon III actually tried to get that to, it didn't quite stick, as we know. They don't celebrate that today. But when he married his second wife, Mary Louise, in 1810, he wanted to, after they got married and they came back into Paris, before they had their ceremony in the Louvre, he wanted them to be able to pass under the arch. At that time, the only thing that was finished was those bottom pillars, just only up a few feet. And so he had them create a full version of it in wood, and complete with the sculptures that he was going to have on it so that he could pass through it. And so that's what they did, of course. But he never did see it finished. When his ashes were returned many years later, and he was buried at the Les Invalides, he did pass underneath it. So he did finally, but at that point he was dead. But Louis the 18th actually was the one who kind of spearheaded the completion of it. And it was finally inaugurated in 1836. It's pretty cool to see. I mean, it is massive. The best time to go is when the flag is in the middle, when they have the huge French flag, and it's so cool to see it there. And it's just massive, and just the wind hits it just right. There, of course, is the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, that was installed on November 11th, 1920, the anniversary of the end of the World War I. They do ceremonies there every single day. I did read that they are still doing them, even though it's kind of a construction site right now, but there's the eternal flame is still lit. It was there that Jackie Kennedy, when she and her husband, John F. Kennedy, had come to Paris, she had visited the Arc de Triomphe, and that is where she got the idea for the eternal flame that is at his grave at Arlington, which I went to see that when I was 14, I think. When you went with your high school group, did anybody else do that back then? I know there's quite a few schools that did that, and I was kind of obsessed with the Kennedy, the whole story as it was, and I just stood there and started just crying, and all my classmates thought I was a weirdo. But it was pretty emotional to, you see this image of Jackie Kennedy standing in front of him as they lit when they buried him. And that's all I could think of when I was there. So it was pretty cool. But the Place Charles de Gaulle, which is where we were, is the meeting point of the 8th, the 16th, and the 17th arrondissement. And from there, it actually used to be the edge of Paris. So on the side that we started, where Kate was, that was actually outside of Paris. And on where we're headed is it was considered the Passy. And it was just right there. The other side was Neuilly. And so it was just right outside the limits of Paris. We are on Avenue Victor Hugo. We're going to walk down here till the end of it. There's a really cool restaurant there to the right. The facade is really pretty. And there's like the most amazing doors on the street too. Prunier facade. This was this location was opened in 1924. And it was by Alfred Prunier, who moved to Paris when he was just 13 from Rouen, and opened his first restaurant in 1872. His first restaurant was widely attended by Oscar Wilde and Sarah Bernhardt, and Georges Clemenceau, who of course was the tiger. He was called Le Tigre. He was a big military guy and very good friends with Claude Monet. But this location here opened in 1924, and it was said to have been also F. Scott Fitzgerald and Hemingway went there. But what you figure out if you're tuned into it, which fortunately and unfortunately, I guess I am. It's kind of like being in Washington, D.C. and seeing everywhere it says Hemingway, ate there, or Washington slept here in D.C. Quite a few places. But at that time, if the restaurant was very inexpensive, he probably did. But at that time, it wasn't. If they went places, it was because F. Scott Fitzgerald paid for it. That's the only time he had gone to the Ritz. Early on that first, when he was there with Hadley, is that the Batmobile? He had gone there with F. Scott Fitzgerald because he always paid. I think this is the little street here to the left. Is this Rue de Dôme? Yes. So this little street is so cute. And the building on the left is kind of just little, I love it when they call it a street and then it's just stairs. But on the left is a building where Baudelaire, Charles Baudelaire, who I think on our walk bingo card, we've had him about 15 times. He lived here, and this is where he died at the end of his life. A building that was there, I should say. Parts of this looks a little bit newer. Oh, we could just stay back on that same road. And of course, we have our benches, our wonderful Paris benches. It's a nice, this was a pretty quiet area, especially on a Sunday. Most of the places on the street like this are going to be closed. They call this the Triangle, the Golden Triangle. This whole area that's kind of off the Arc de Triomphe. You have some very, on another street close to here, you have a lot of the very, very luxury boutiques. Look at these doors though. Oh, there's so many amazing doors on this street. You just have to go, if you love doors in Paris, you just have to go and walk up and down the street. Look at that. It's just gorgeous. I love what they did with those columns. So pretty. There's quite a few embassies on this street too. There's Iceland, Nigeria, Benin is also on this street, which I don't think I'd ever heard of that country. Did you watch the Olympics and the closing ceremonies, the opening ceremony? It's like, how many countries are there in the world? There's I was just like, it just is never ending. Today they had it, and it was all the athletes just came out, and it went on forever and ever and ever. The ones that were remaining in Paris, that is, or not Paris, in Japan. But in 3 years, it'll be in Paris, which will be quite exciting. They did a really cool thing at the Trocadero today. They've been doing something associated with Paris Plage this whole time, which is kind of cool. That building there that Kate just showed is by Charles Plumet. It was built in 1901. He did quite a few of the buildings down here. Most of the buildings are all really built around the beginning of the 20th century. So 1901, 1910. And of course, there's quite a few different little boutiques in here. It's a nice quiet day. Oh, another Patrick Roget. Is there any cool chocolate things in the window at that one? That is gorgeous. But this chocolate shop, I don't think where there is anything. Hi, Kate. He does these huge sculptures out of chocolate. And there's one that we saw right outside last week. We didn't go close to it, but right outside the Saint-Sulpice there, he did this one, and it was like a giant, it's like a giant monkey or something that I saw. And I mean, it was pretty big. It was like 4 feet across and 4 feet high, and it was all done out of chocolate. That's another good place. If you are in Paris and it's a hot day, go into the chocolate stores because they usually have air conditioning. They don't want their precious product to be melting. So it's always a good place to go. That and the Picard. Go into Picard because it's always nice and cool in there. Look at these doors. They're just like amazing. And this little tiny street, little alley. I think when they put those fences up, it just makes you wonder I mean, it could be absolutely nothing, but it just makes you wonder what is in there even more because you can't go in. This is almost just like a door porn. That building right there on the right is another one by the same architect. That one, Charles Plumet. Very cool. Very gorgeous buildings. It's very, there's lots of the Haussmann influence here with all those railings going on. More beautiful railings. And this, of course, this street we're on, of course, is Avenue Victor Hugo. It was actually named after the author while he was still alive. He was living, he spent the final years of his life after Place des Vosges here on the street. We'll walk past his the building where he had lived. It's been rebuilt since then. But we will see the building where he lived, but it was actually named a few years before he died. So, I mean, that's kind of cool when people say, where do you live? And you say Avenue, I live on the street, Avenue Victor Hugo. That's kind of some pretty huge bragging rights. When when he did die, they had a grand procession for him through Paris. It was immense. They ended up basically parking his casket, and he's underneath the Arc de Triomphe, where he remained all night. And there was just hundreds of thousands of people lining the streets before he was taken up and buried at the Pantheon. But there's sketches and stuff that you could see of that funeral when Napoleon was returned, they returned his so cool. When they returned him to Paris to be buried at Les Invalides, they had this huge procession for him, and his coffin was placed, the coffin that we see that he has today, it was placed on top of this immense structure that had caryatides that held it up. It was massive, huge, that went through and underneath the Arc de Triomphe. You really notice how huge the Arc de Triomphe is when you're there. They've had many times where they've actually had planes fly underneath it. There was actually just a very old black and white video I saw yesterday of a plane going underneath it. And if just this last week, and also in May, they have what do they call it? The like arcade or something like that, where basically the sun sets. If you were standing in the Champs-Élysées, you could look and the sun sets inside of the Arc de Triomphe, which is pretty cool. They had it it's in May, it's like dates at the beginning of May and also beginning of August. And I tried to go see it in May, but it was a really cloudy day and there wasn't much of a sunset. We're now at the Place Victor Hugo. I mean, if you're going to have a street named after you, and you get to have a place named after you too. This one was named after he died though. So he didn't get to have poor guy could only say he was walking on the avenue. Like, when he got here, it was some other name. But it used to have a statue in the center of it. This was actually where the Hippodrome was up until 1869 when it caught on fire and burned it down. It was a structure that they would have sporting events and circuses in. But this is another huge one. The Arc de Triomphe isn't the only one that they call, originally it was the Place d'Etoile. It got changed to Place de Gaulle in 1970. But this one is another one with all of those. If you look at it from above, it looks like a star. But this is for old Victor. But the center of it was a huge monument to him, built by Louis Ernest Bernet. Boulangerie is closed. It's just a little lovely. Has anybody walked around here. There's not a lot of, it's not exactly one of those places where, you know, you would think to maybe walk around, but it's really cool to just pick a street and walk up and down it, as is anything in Paris, right? It's a really, really cool area. I think I walked around here when I stayed one time a block off of the Champ de Mars. And I think it was my first day and I was trying to battle the jet lag and kept walking. And I remember walking up to here because the church we're about to see is where somebody we know got married. And then all my pictures, after my first 3.5 days in Paris, my card and my phone, my camera died. So this little church right here is the Saint Honoré de l'Eau. And this little church was built in 1852 as a Roman Catholic church. In 1867, on September 2nd, Charles Baudelaire, they had his funeral here. It's very tiny inside. And on May 9th, 1927, Hemingway and Pauline Pfeiffer got married in this small little church. It's not very big inside. It looks a little bigger from the outside than it actually is inside. I had gone in there and tried to take a picture, and a nun quickly told me to stop, ushered me out. Kate got there today, and she went in there, and she said that they were having a very odd sort of a ritual or something they were doing. She said it reminded her a lot of something from Eyes Wide Shut, which is kind of the image I instantly got when she said they were doing some sort of a strange ritual, also kind of from a scene from Da Vinci Code. I had said we probably can't go in because they yelled at me with a phone trying to take a picture. They're not going to like the gimbal as well. But it's a very cute.
They closed it.
Oh, they did. They probably knew we were coming back.
So I went in that door there, but it's now
all closed off. There is a larger church with the same name around the corner that was built because this one ended up being too small around the corner. And that is the one that most people, and even Ken Burns, used in his documentary as showing that was the one Hemingway and Pauline got married in. But it is not. It is this little church here. And when he got married, she was a very devout Catholic. He was not. To be married in the Catholic Church. Oh, look, isn't that sweet? It looks like Jean d'Arc. I think it must be. Look at that.
I think it is. She has her little helmet here.
Yeah.
Gaunt.
I always love to find Jeanne d'Arc in Paris. Oh yeah, there she is. She has it. Oh, look, a little Eiffel Tower on the thingy, on the fence.
Oh yeah.
That's funny. I'd rather see that on everything than those stupid locks. But when they got married, when they were going to get married, she was a Catholic and he had been married before. So she said, you have to, you have to talk to, were you baptized in the Catholic Church? And he kind of said, oh, I think I was, in the hospital in Italy. And so then he actually was able to sweet talk a priest into agreeing with him and saying that was true. But sadly, what it did was, because that happened, it basically made his marriage to Hadley disappear in the eyes of the church, of course, making it that his marriage to Hadley and their son was outside of the bonds of church, which wasn't very nice. Look at that beautiful facade. Just walk up and down. This is like door porn for everybody. But he ended up being able to do that. She kind of wasn't so sure about that, but she didn't really care. She was just happy to lock that guy down. And so they had a very small ceremony. It was only a few months after the divorce with Hadley was finally official. And everybody has their definitely strong feelings about Pauline and Hadley. I don't think Pauline is as horrible as Mary, but that's my issue. But that's where they were married. And then of course they moved, they had their place on Rue Ferrou, which we saw last weekend. That was just right outside of Saint-Sulpice, right up the street. It's a very cute little street. Hopefully we didn't go back. What number are we on? What number do you see?
I see 102 on
Okay.
the street.
Okay.
And this side we're at 113.
Okay. 124 on the right side will be Victor Hugo. And when I was hopefully there's nowhere scaffolding on Google that was covered in scaffolding. So
no, it's free.
Oh, good.
And we can see the amazing door.
Yes. Oh, cool. We can see his face over the door. I had a really hard time deciding which street we should go down. I was like the street where the Georges V is, but I'm going to do, when I am there, I'm going to do one on the last Sunday of this month. We'll be kind of in this area again because I want to go down because it's that Sunday before 2 days before the anniversary of Princess Diana's death. And so I wanted to go down around there and then also share the Théâtre, what is it? It's the Théâtre Champs-Élysées that has the Bordel reliefs on the outside. And I don't think he's here today, but there's a gentleman that often watches the walks that is the grandson. And he sends me really interesting and amazing things about his grandfather. Really cool. So we'll go check that out. They were supposed to today for the Olympics, they were supposed to unveil this huge flag for the Olympics coming off the Eiffel Tower, but it was too windy. And so if you watch it on TV, you could kind of tell it is definitely computer generated. So not to spoil it for everybody, but somebody I know was there and she was sending me a video and said that they didn't do the flag because it was way too windy, which I guess there must be a sweet spot because you kind of want it a little windy so that the flag is moving. Oh, see this, there he is. That is so this building was built over where his house had been. Look at that. Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous. I don't know. I think that's it. I don't know if I think I'd be a little scared to live under that. He always has his hand on sculptures of him always kind of have his hand on his head. Is that like he's thinking? Is he? He's very intent in his thoughts. But he had spent this building here was built in 1907. The door is amazing. He ended up coming here towards the end of his life. He was here with his long running mistress, Juliette Drouet, which we did a podcast episode about. She was they had a very interesting story, but they were here. This is where she died. And then later where he died on May 22nd, 1885. It's a gorgeous facade though. There's even a little plaque there. Those the oars, because they look like an oar, that goes with the symbol of the city being the boat, were designed by Philippe Starck. And these ones, you could count on these to be factual. Sometimes the ones that you see up on there, like we saw to the right above the door, are, anybody could put those up. It's a very long process. John Baxter was telling me that they wanted to put one on the building he lives in, which is where Sylvia Beach lived and died. But they looked into it, and it was such a long process that which as in anything that involves paper in France, and they kind of abandon it. But pretty much anybody could put anything. That's why you see there are two different spots pretty near each other that state that Molière was born there. The one on the Rue Saint-Honoré is actually, Saint-Honoré is actually the one where he actually was born, not the one that was around the corner from Les Halles. That was just some guy that had the building, and he just decided to say that that's where Molière was born. Oh, look at that, so gorgeous. And I'm super excited because the place I'm staying in Paris has a tie to Molière, and I am super excited about it. So I will share that. We actually walked by it on one of our walks before I ever even knew that's where I was going to stay. So I'm super excited. It's got, it's on an upper floor, thankfully, with a partial elevator, goes part of the way. So that I could get my heavy bags in and out. I haven't even begun to pack, and I'm already thinking that I'm going to be my bag is going to be too heavy, and I haven't even started. I'm there for a long time. I'm going to go through two different, it's going to go from summer to fall while I'm there. I've got to keep these things in mind. There's another fantastic door. And we're not done with Victor Hugo. When we get down to the end, there's more Victor. But then it pops up one of these more contemporary buildings, and I say no. I know my fair friends Sarah and Eugene are watching, and he's really into the contemporary architecture. Thumbs down for me. The older, the better. The more iron and sculptures, the better. Some little cute little busy cafes around here. Tomorrow starts the pass that you have to have. Ooh, was that a best croissant or baguette? Croissant. Oh, this year's best croissant. We'll have to remember that. I think, yeah, Chez Meunier. Just like the chocolate. I'll make a note and add that onto my sheet for you guys. But the pass starts tomorrow, that you have to have the health pass. And if everybody's been following along, for Americans and non-EU people coming in, it's been quite the debacle trying to be able to get it to work, because the American vaccine cards do not have QR codes. I think even if it did, it probably wouldn't work. So starting tomorrow, though, they say that you will be able to get the QR code by email. They started about 2 weeks ago doing it for French nationals that got the vaccination outside of France. You would send to the specific email address. The French consulates in the US, actually, I saw had posted and emailed about it, that you could send them the information, whatever, a few things, and probably a picture of your card. They would then send back to you a QR code that you could just upload. Easy as that. So it's supposed to start tomorrow. I will keep an eye on it because I need to do that before I get there. But if you don't have it and it becomes an issue, you're still fine using your paper pass. Just keep it with you and your ID. Look at that, gorgeous, gorgeous. Keep it with you and your ID everywhere you go. There hasn't been any issues with people with using those that I have seen. Who knows, there could be some. This is a really gorgeous, this facade here of the La Boucherie Lamartine. It is a historic historic little facade they have kept, and is still a butcher today. It went back to the 19th century, and it is still a butcher there today. A very high-end fancy butcher. But it's pretty cool that they saved that. Look at that. I think this is, if I couldn't live in Saint-Germain, this is where I would want to live. Oh, I'll just pick like 2 of the most expensive parts of Paris. That's okay. But yeah, so the health pass, that should be working, hopefully. I also have heard that from multiple people that now you could go do it at Hotel Dieu, which is just across from Notre Dame, which is a really cool place to sneak into and get a really nice view of the top of Notre Dame. But I've heard from a few people that they went in there without a problem. Also, that there was a pharmacy near the 7th that a friend of mine went in there, and many people, took 5 minutes for them to do it. So as most things, once they figure it out, it gets easier. So if you're coming in September, October, I imagine it'll be even more simple by then to get it taken care of.
There's also a pharmacy near us. It's right opposite the Moulin Rouge.
Oh, good.
And they gave my friend a QR code for his vaccine pass from the US. So I think without any, no questions, he just showed his ID and his card, and they gave him the pass sanitaire for the app.
Perfect.
So that's another option for anyone coming.
Yeah, it changed as soon as they announced, everybody was saying, go to the opera, the pharmacy by the opera. And then next thing you know, people were like getting screamed at and chased out of the store that were coming in for there. So Paris, by the gals at Paris by Mouth, I was messaging with them, and they said that I was saying, oh, I heard about this one. And they said, yeah, we're actually kind of afraid to even share it, because as soon as the people know, they just descend on there, and then it just turns into kind of a nightmare. But they're all, every pharmacy actually has the ability to do it. I think it depends on who you get, as in most things, and what time of the day you go. If you go and they're very busy, that's not the time to ask, because they will not be pleased about that. We're now in the Square Lamartine, and it is named after a poet, a French poet, Alphonse de Lamartine. He was a poet of the Romantic movement, my favorite. That's where Delacroix and everybody, Victor Hugo, this is the whole area. Down there, there should be a couple statues in there. What a cute little square. We're actually very close. We're getting pretty close down to the river, to give you a little context of where we are. Some great buildings. Even a palm tree here in the summer. There's a glass plaque there for the children. You'll see these in a lot of parks around the city, and then in schools there's a plaque, but these are dedicated to the children that disappeared, the Jewish children that were disappeared for each little area under World War II, as we sadly know. I also, when I get there, I'll be there for the anniversary of the liberation, and I am hoping that I could make it to a special place that day on the 25th. I'll give you a hint, I will not be drinking 51 martinis. Can you guess? Can you guess what it is? But I'm thinking I might have to go there for the anniversary of that. Here is the statue, this tall statue. This is of the poet. It was created in 1951. It replaced a bronze version that was here that got melted down in the occupation. He's very fancy. I think that's how Kate, we need to dress like that and how we walk around Paris and stand
100%.
like just stand
Ready
on the
when you
corners as we wait for a light to turn. It looks like, is it nice? Is it warm?
It is very warm now. It was stormy just before I left the house.
Of course.
It's actual summer weather.
Yeah, all week. It looks like it's
of.
muggy though too.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a nice breeze this afternoon, but
Okay.
It has been really close, and just just ready to thunder.
Yes.
At any minute.
But it looks like it's going to be good for the next 10 days, at least on my phone. It looks like that.
I've stopped looking at the weather forecast because it's just upsetting.
Well, and it changes so quickly in Paris. You kind of can't really count on the weather apps in Paris because it could be you could go through 5 seasons in 2 hours in Paris.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in England, you kind of get used to like taking whatever comes.
Yeah, I know that's my packing thing because I'm gonna need some sort of a coat, but I do not have those puffy coats that I can't stand them. And so I am like, okay, I'm gonna need to bring like 3 different coats.
Hey, Lauren and I have got like 20 wool coats in our wardrobe. You can just raid our wardrobe if you need to.
Come check one out. We're coming up here where we'll actually get to see, right here. Is he, let's see, do we think he's touching his forehead? This of course is Mr. Victor Hugo. This was done by Rodin. Oh, see, got his hand on near his head. This was of course done by Rodin. He was commissioned to do this by the state in 1889. It was going to be for the Pantheon. He met with them in 1883 to talk about it and design it. It was supposed to be placed in 1889, but of course, Rodin being Rodin, he went out on his own for how he wanted it to be designed. It was supposed to just be a bust. He actually met Victor Hugo a few times to talk to him about doing this. He ended up, the state did not care for what he did, and he still completed it anyway. If you remember, quite a while, I think back in March, we went, when we were in Montparnasse, we saw the Balzac statue and that whole dilemma that Rodin put them through, completing that. But he decided to do this full-bodied one. He's kind of sitting along the rocks of Guernesey, which is where he was from. He is next to 2 muses. The one above him is tragedy, and the one kind of standing behind him is meditation, or the inner voice muse. I do love all the stories of the muse, and it's probably because of my love of Xanadu, one of the greatest movies ever made. The Olivia Newton-John playing a muse, and there's roller skating. I know people usually are like, it's what? That's your favorite movie? It's one of them. It has everything. It has amazing music. But I got off topic. But this is Victor, of course. He ended up just doing a sketch of this. There is a copy of it in the Rodin Museum in Meudon, which is just outside of Paris, which I think I might try to have to see if I have time to get out to. But then they ended up placing the statue here. It's kind of the entryway to Mr. Hugo and to all of his streets and everything else. But it's a pretty cool statue. Now I'm gonna have to look up and see how many statues I could find of him touching his head. His museum that is at the Place des Vosges reopened back in May. It was of course closed because of the pandemic, but it had been closed anyway because it was being partially redesigned. And in the courtyard, inner courtyard, they were putting in a cafe. It is part of the Paris Museum, so it is free unless there's a special exhibit, but it's pretty It's small, but it is in his former residence as well. So it's kind of cool. He kind of looks like he maybe should be like surfing. With his hand
is
out
so
like that.
Chunky as well. Can you see?
Yeah.
It's like the hand looks so unfinished, but like in a really weird.
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
see that?
Yeah.
Like super rough. Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah. And then the rest of it, like the muse is so smooth, or it looks so smooth. It's kind of a cool sculpture sitting out here.
It's gorgeous. Like zoom out so you can see the full.
I love how I love the green, the ivy around it too.
Yeah. Very wild.
I think he looks like he's surfing, especially from this side.
Yeah, it looks like he's actually on a wave.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Very cool. And all the bamboo behind him, so pretty. It needs some music. It needs like the Hang 10 music. Well, that is our little walk today, or into our, it basically could have just been a walk all about Victor Hugo between the Arc de Triomphe and here. So much of it is tied to him, but of course, Christo, I can't wait to see that. It's going to be really amazing. I will put in the notes that I will send to everybody is, I should hopefully have everybody's email address. If I don't, send me a message and I will forward it to you with a copy of the video of today, but I will also put a link into the live 24-hour camera that you could see that they have on the Arc de Triomphe that I think was placed right about where we started, because it's on that back side. But it's pretty cool to maybe check in on it every few days to see if you're not going to be there at all this fall, you could see it with the fabric. Oh yeah, Carol, I don't know what they do with the fabric afterwards. I'll find out. I'll see what I could find out. And maybe have to go up on top and do a video for you guys there. So I don't think we'll have a live video next weekend because it's right before I leave and I have a million things I need to get done. Quite a few people I need to finish their trip planning for before I head out of here. And so, and getting my hair done and visiting and stocking grandma up with all the chocolate that she'll need. So I don't think we'll do a live one, but maybe I'll pop on and just do a live chat with you guys. We'll see. But I will let you know. But thank you so much, Kate. And thank you for braving the strange ritual in the church, as well as trying to get to the Arc de Triomphe.
Oh.
It's a harrowing day. Yeah, I think, we're close to the water now, I think. It's a gorgeous, beautiful day. And I hope everybody has a wonderful Sunday, and we will see you soon. I will be doing lots of videos in Paris. There's Kate looking adorable as ever. And so we will see you again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.